Society says talking out loud to yourself means you are losing your mind. But psychology proves the exact opposite. It is your brain using language to anchor itself. Picture standing alone in the kitchen late at night, whispering quietly just to untangle your heavy thoughts. Silencing that private voice out of shame means burying your greatest emotional compass. Today we will decode this hidden superpower and find your way out. Before we begin, what city or state in the US are you resting in tonight, and are you finally giving your tired heart a moment of peace away from the rushing world? You may have caught yourself doing it in the kitchen, in the car, or late at night when no one else was around. You ask yourself a question out loud. Why did I say that? Where did I put my keys? What am I supposed to do now? Then, almost without thinking, you answer yourself. For many people, this habit feels embarrassing. They immediately look around to make sure nobody heard them. They have been taught that talking to yourself is strange, childish, or somehow evidence that something is wrong. But ordinary self-talk is not the same as losing contact with reality or hearing a voice you believe belongs to someone else. In many cases, it is simply the mind using language to organize itself. And for people who have spent years feeling lonely, misunderstood, anxious, or emotionally exhausted, self-talk can become something even more meaningful. It can be the private place where thoughts finally slow down enough to be understood. Sometimes, the only person who has stayed with you through every disappointment is you. The voice that says, keep going. The voice that asks, are you really okay? The voice that speaks when the rest of the world feels too busy to listen. People who regularly talk to themselves often share 7 uncommon psychological traits. These traits do not make them superior to anyone else, but they may reveal a mind that is more reflective, more internally active, and more capable of turning confusion into clarity. The first rare trait is a deep level of self-awareness. Imagine that you have just reacted badly to someone you care about. Maybe your tone became sharp. Maybe you withdrew. Maybe you said something that did not represent what you truly felt. Later, while standing alone, you suddenly say, wait, why did I do that? That question may seem simple, but something important has happened. For a moment, you have divided yourself into 2 roles. One part of you is the person who acted. The other part is the observer who is trying to understand the action. Psychologists sometimes describe this ability as reflective awareness. It is the capacity to step back from an experience and examine your own thoughts, emotions, and behavior instead of simply being carried away by them. Developmental psychologist Lev Vygotsky believed that private speech plays an important role in how people guide and regulate themselves. The conversations children first have with others gradually become conversations they can have internally. Even in adulthood, speaking aloud can bring that hidden inner dialogue back into the open. When you hear your own words, your thoughts become easier to examine. You may say, I am angry. Then, after a pause, you realize, no, I am not only angry, I am hurt. And beneath the hurt, perhaps there is fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of not being respected. Fear that you are once again becoming invisible. This is why self-talk can function like an emotional mirror. It allows you to hear what your automatic reactions were trying to hide. Many people move through life without examining themselves deeply. They react, defend, blame, and repeat the same patterns. But a person who pauses and asks, what is really happening inside me, creates the possibility of change. That does not mean self-aware people never make mistakes. In fact, they may notice their mistakes more painfully than others do. They can become overly critical, replay conversations, and question whether they were good enough. But healthy self-talk does not exist to punish you. It exists to help you understand yourself. Instead of saying, I ruin everything, you can ask, what was I feeling when that happened? Instead of saying, there is something wrong with me, you can say, something inside me is asking for attention. That small change in language can turn shame into curiosity, and curiosity is often where healing begins. The second rare trait is a powerful ability to solve problems. Picture an engineer standing in front of a whiteboard, quietly describing each step of a complicated design, or a chess player whispering possible moves before touching a piece. They are not speaking because they lack intelligence. They are speaking because the problem contains too many moving parts to hold as one tangled thought. Inside the mind, ideas can arrive all at once. Fear mixes with memory. Assumptions mix with facts. One possibility interrupts another before it is fully examined. Speaking forces the brain to slow down. First this happened, then that caused this. So, if I change this part, what happens next? This process is connected to what researchers call the self-explanation effect. When people explain an idea to themselves, They are more likely to notice missing steps, weak assumptions, and contradictions. You may have experienced this while trying to explain a problem to another person. Halfway through your explanation, the answer suddenly becomes obvious. The other person did not solve it. You solved it by putting the confusion into words. Talking to yourself can create the same effect, even when the room is empty. Suppose you are facing a difficult decision. Your mind keeps repeating, "I do not know what to do." But then you begin speaking more specifically. "If I stay, I keep the security, but I may continue feeling trapped. If I leave, I face uncertainty, but I may regain a part of myself. What am I truly afraid of losing? What might I lose by doing nothing?" Now the problem has structure. This is especially valuable for someone living with depression or low self-esteem. Emotional pain often speaks in absolutes. Nothing will work. I always fail. There is no way forward. Self-explanation gently challenges those conclusions by asking the mind to show its reasoning. Is it true that nothing has ever worked? Is this a fact? Or is this how I feel today? What is one step that would make tomorrow slightly easier? You do not have to solve your entire life in one conversation. Sometimes, the purpose of self-talk is simply to separate the next step from the fear surrounding it. And when you can name the next step, you are no longer completely powerless. The third rare trait is exceptional emotional regulation. There are moments when emotion moves faster than reason. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, your body prepares for danger, even when the danger is only a conversation, a memory, or the possibility of being judged. In that moment, saying, "I am terrified," can sometimes pull you deeper into the fear. But something changes when you speak to yourself from a small distance. You may use your own name. "Sarah, slow down. Michael, breathe. You have handled difficult things before. Come on, stay with me. We only need to get through the next minute." It may sound unusual, but this kind of language can help the mind step outside the emotional storm. Psychologist Ethan Kross has studied the effects of what is sometimes called distant self-talk. When people address themselves by name, or use words such as "you" instead of "I", they may gain psychological distance from overwhelming feelings. You stop speaking only as the frightened person inside the experience. For a moment, you become the calm friend standing beside that person. Think about how differently you speak to someone you love. If a friend told you, "I made one mistake, so my life is over," you would probably not agree with them. You might say, "You are hurting right now, but this moment is not your entire future." Yet when the same thing happens to you, your inner voice may become cruel. "You ruined everything. Nobody will respect you now. You should have known better." Self-talk gives you the opportunity to change roles. Instead of becoming another attacker, you can become your own coach. You can say, "Yes, that hurt. Yes, I am disappointed. But I do not have to make a permanent decision from a temporary emotion." This is not pretending that pain does not exist. It is learning to stay present without allowing pain to control every conclusion. For people who have lived through emotional neglect, criticism, or repeated rejection, this ability is especially important. They may have learned to regulate everyone else's feelings while ignoring their own. They know how to calm a child, reassure a partner, or support a friend, but they do not know how to offer the same compassion inward. Talking to yourself can become a way of bringing that care home. The fourth rare trait is higher creativity. Creative minds are rarely quiet in a simple way. They connect memories, images, possibilities, fears, questions, and unfinished ideas that may appear unrelated to everyone else. A writer may walk across the room, speaking as two different characters. An artist may ask, "What would happen if I removed this?" A musician may hum, argue, stop, and say, "No, that is too predictable." From the outside, it may look like someone having an argument with an empty room. But the room is not empty. It is filled with competing possibilities. Self-talk allows a person to play several roles at once. One part creates an idea. Another challenges it. Another asks whether it could be more honest, more useful, or more surprising. What if I tried the opposite? What would this look like from someone else's point of view? What am I assuming because I have always done it this way? These questions create friction between ideas, and that friction often produces something new. Creativity is not only painting, writing, or making music. It is also the ability to imagine a different solution to an old problem. A lonely person may ask, "What if connection does not have to begin with confidence?" Someone trapped in a painful routine may ask, "What if I do not need to change everything at once?" A person who has spent years believing they are unworthy may finally ask, "What if that belief came from how I was treated, not from who I am?" That question alone can open an entirely different life. Talking to yourself creates a private space where ideas do not have to be perfect before they are spoken. You can test them, reject them, reshape them, and follow them somewhere unexpected. There is no audience to impress. No immediate judgment, no need to sound intelligent, only the freedom to explore. The fifth rare trait is greater focus and mental performance. You may have noticed that when you lose something, you sometimes begin repeating its name. Keys. Keys. Where are the keys? At first, this seems pointless. You already know what you are looking for, but repeating the word can help keep the object active in your attention. It acts like a mental anchor, preventing unrelated thoughts from pulling you away. The same principle appears in sports. A basketball player may quietly say, bend, breathe, follow through. A runner may repeat, steady pace, relax your shoulders. A person giving a presentation may tell themselves, slow down, make eye contact, finish the sentence. This is known as instructional self-talk. It turns a broad intention into a clear command the brain can follow. Anxiety often destroys focus by making the mind search for every possible threat. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I forget everything? The more you argue with every fear, the more scattered you become. A simple spoken instruction can interrupt that spiral. Read the first line. Make the phone call. Open the document. Put one plate away. People struggling with depression are often told to be more motivated, but motivation is not always available. When the mind is exhausted, even ordinary tasks can feel enormous. Self-talk can reduce the size of the task. You do not need to clean the entire house. Stand up. Pick up the clothes, put them in one pile, now drink some water. This voice is not demanding a miracle. It is guiding attention toward the next possible action. And sometimes, progress begins not with confidence, but with a quiet instruction spoken into an empty room. One step, now another. Keep going. The sixth rare trait is strong independence of thought. When life becomes uncertain, many people immediately search outside themselves for an answer. They ask friends, scroll through comments, watch strangers explain what they should do, and collect opinions until their own voice becomes almost impossible to hear. There is nothing wrong with seeking advice. Other people can offer wisdom, experience, and perspectives we may not see alone. But people who regularly talk to themselves often develop something equally valuable: an inner filter. They do not accept every opinion simply because it is popular. They test it. Does this actually make sense for me? Is this what I believe, or am I afraid of disappointing people? Would I still choose this if nobody applauded me? Speaking these questions out loud gives thoughts weight. An idea that sounded convincing in your head may suddenly feel weak when you hear yourself say it. A decision that seemed selfish may begin to sound honest. A rule you followed for years may reveal itself as nothing more than someone else's fear passed down to you. This process strengthens independent thinking because you become accustomed to examining your own reasoning. You hear the contradiction. You notice when you are making excuses. You recognize when your choice is based on shame rather than truth. Over time, you become less dependent on constant validation. You no longer need everyone to understand your decision before you trust it. This can be especially powerful for people with low self-esteem. When you have spent years doubting yourself, outside approval can feel like emotional oxygen. A compliment lifts you. Criticism crushes you. Silence makes you assume you have done something wrong. You begin living as though every decision must be approved by an invisible audience. Should I say this? Will they like me? What if they think I am difficult? What if choosing myself makes me a bad person? But private self-dialogue can slowly rebuild inner authority. You may say, I know they will not agree with me, but this boundary is necessary. I understand why they are disappointed, but their disappointment does not automatically mean I am wrong. I can listen to advice without abandoning myself. That is what independence of thought really means. It does not mean becoming stubborn, isolated, or unwilling to learn. It means other people's voices no longer completely replace your own. You can hear the crowd without being swallowed by it. You can respect someone's opinion without turning it into a command. And you can make a difficult choice because it is honest, not because it is popular. The seventh rare trait is a continuous drive for personal growth. At the end of the day, some people replay what happened only to punish themselves. Why did I say that? Why am I always like this? Why can I never get anything right? That is not reflection. That is self-attack disguised as analysis. But healthy self-talk creates a different kind of conversation. What did today teach me? Where did I react from fear? What did I handle better than I would have a year ago? What should I try differently tomorrow? These questions create an inner feedback loop. Your life becomes something you are actively learning from, rather than merely surviving. Every mistake offers information. Every uncomfortable emotion reveals a need. Every repeated pattern becomes a clue. A difficult conversation may show you that you avoid conflict until resentment explodes. A painful rejection may reveal how much of your worth you placed in another person's hands. A day of complete exhaustion may force you to admit that your body has been asking for rest, long before your mind was willing to listen. Personal growth rarely arrives as one dramatic transformation. More often, it happens through thousands of quiet corrections. You notice your tone. You apologize sooner. You stop chasing someone who repeatedly makes you feel unwanted. You recognize the thought that says you are worthless, and instead of obeying it, you answer it. I am struggling, but I am not worthless. I made a mistake, but I am not the mistake. I am behind where I hope to be, but my life is not over. These sentences may not change your circumstances immediately, but they change the relationship you have with yourself while you move through those circumstances. And that relationship affects everything. The choices you tolerate, the love you accept, the boundaries you set, the future you believe you deserve. People who talk to themselves are not always confident. Sometimes they speak because they are trying to find confidence. They are not always calm. Sometimes they are talking themselves back from the edge of panic. They are not always strong. Sometimes the voice in the room is the only thing holding them together. That is why this habit should not automatically be treated as something embarrassing. For many people, self-talk is the mind's way of becoming visible to itself. It is how confusion becomes language, how fear becomes instruction, how pain becomes understanding, how loneliness becomes companionship. There are, of course, important differences between ordinary self-talk and experiences that may require professional support. If you hear voices that feel separate from you, command you, frighten you, or interfere with daily life, speaking with a qualified mental health professional is an act of care, not weakness. But if you simply find yourself processing your day aloud, guiding yourself through a problem, rehearsing a conversation, or offering yourself encouragement, you may not be losing your mind. You may be learning how to listen to it. The most meaningful conversation of your life may not be the one that impresses a room full of people. It may be the quiet conversation you have with yourself when nobody is watching. The one where you finally admit that you are tired. The one where you stop pretending you are fine. The one where you say, I do not know what comes next, but I am not giving up on you. Because after all the people who misunderstood you, left you, judged you, or failed to see how hard you were trying, there is still one voice that can choose to stay, your own. So the next time you catch yourself talking alone, do not rush to silence it. Listen carefully. You may be hearing the part of you that has been trying to guide you home. If you recognized yourself in any of these 7 traits, share in the comments which one felt most personal to you. And subscribe for more quiet, honest conversations about the mind, healing, and the hidden strengths we often fail to recognize